Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Minneapolis Planning Commission meeting for November 17th, 2025. My name is Chris Meyer, and I'm chair of the commission. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Chowdhury is absent. Conley?
Present.
Forney is absent. Gordon is absent. Jones? Absent. Shefty? Is absent. Shepherd?
Present.
Wagner?
Here.
Vice President Baxley?
Here.
And President Meyer.
Here.
There are 5 members present.
That is a quorum. All right, first we'll move to the minutes of November 3rd, 2025. Is there a motion to adopt those minutes?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are adopted. We'll next move to organize the agenda. One note that I've been asked to make about this is there was a clerical error. So there was an incorrect public notice for a public hearing published for tonight's meeting for a land use application at 5462 Nicollet Avenue and 5463 Blaisdell Avenue. The item is not on our agenda tonight, but it's going to be scheduled to be considered at our next meeting on December 8th. But before I proceed with the rest of the agenda, I want to check if anyone else in the room was here to speak to that item, because you can speak now if you came for that. Is anyone here for that? All right. We'll have that on our December 8th agenda. So now for the rest of the items, we have one item without any public hearing, item number 4 for the TIF district modifications. And then we have 2 public hearing items. The first is item 5, 315 27th Avenue Northeast. I've asked to discuss that item to discuss their landscaping plan. Item number 6 has been recommended for consent, 3201 6th Street North, Ward 4. Was anyone here to speak against the staff recommendation for item number 6? All right, not seeing any, so we'll have that on consent. And then the last item after that will be our 2026 calendar, or just the calendar for January and February. All right, is there any discussion on that? Would someone like to move that agenda?
So moved.
Second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is adopted. All right, so first with our first item, number 4, commissioners, is there any discussion on the TIF district modifications? All right, would someone like to move item number 4?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any last discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That is adopted. And now we'll turn to our consent item. So I'll open the public hearing for 3201 6th Street North. If you wanted to speak about this at all, you can now. All right, not seeing any speakers. Commissioners, is there any discussion on item number 6? Would someone like to move item number 6?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any last discussion? All right, all in favor of the staff recommendation for item number 6, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, that is adopted. All right, and now for item number 5, 315 27th Avenue Northeast, staff is Aaron Hanauer.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. For 315 27th Avenue Northeast, looking to just discuss the landscaping plan, but then happy to answer questions you might have, specifically with the proposed, the tree plan for their site. All right. Here's the site plan that was included in your packet. The plans note and the staff report reflect 7 existing trees, and it states 19 planted trees would be part of this project when, given the size of the lot, which is 6 acres, and the size of the building, there would be 88 canopy trees required. After some discussions with the applicant today, staff and the applicant realized that there are 30 existing trees on site, 11 of them being evergreen trees. And with the proposed trees on site, there would be 57 trees with existing and proposed, and again, 11 of those being canopy trees. Given the reduced amount of trees that they have and are proposing, they need alternative compliance. They're requesting alternative compliance for the landscaping plan for this site plan review application, and this is to establish that waste hauler use. We staff recommended support for this alternative compliance request, and for a few reasons. One, the retention of a number of, I think there was 7 of those large trees having a caliper size in around 180 to 220 inches. So that was seen as a big positive. And then just the existing site conditions of, there's a bridge embankment along University Avenue, and the topography of this, and also a stormwater pond on the northeast end of the site, just the uncertainty of the ability to put additional trees. Good conversation with the applicant. I know that they are here and can discuss the possibility of adding some more trees in that pond area, Chair, and possibly along 27th Avenue as well. So I could pause there, have the applicant speak if you'd like to have them speak, and then answer questions now and/or after they've had a chance to present.
Sure. So let me ask you just a few questions before we turn to the applicant. So they would normally be required to have 88 canopy trees. You're saying they'll have 57 trees after we learned about this today. So how many of those will be canopy ones?
Thanks. There would be, I'm glad you asked the question, and I think we should eliminate, the evergreen trees are good, but I think we should let's just focus on those canopy trees when discussing the number, maybe for simplicity. But there would be the 46 canopy trees, I do believe.
46 canopy trees, okay.
Right.
And then 11 other trees, okay. Commissioner Baxley?
Aaron, I was unfamiliar with the sort of aggregating caliper inches as a form of, is that a new thing, or is that just a creative way to?
Look at?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely in the zoning code and site plan review, the zoning code encourages the retention of large mature trees.
Yeah.
But for this site plan review application, there is not a exception, or there's not language in the site plan review chapter allowing the retention of caliper to count towards the number of trees. But it was something that staff thought was relevant in seeing the large trees and perhaps some limitations on where new trees could be placed on this site that has a lot of existing conditions.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Right. So can you just walk us through what the caliper inches thing was? So what is it that they're providing that is a benefit of,
Mm-hmm. I think boiled down is they have 7 large mature trees
Yep.
that they would be retaining for this project, instead of not seeing all trees being equal, but those mature ones that can provide a large amount of screening and other benefits, those were retained. And so we appreciated the applicant doing that and incorporated that as some of the reasoning why staff was supportive for granting alternative compliance for the number of trees that would be on site with the project.
and then I want to ask on the record a question I asked you by email already, but for the stormwater pond and other water filtration amenities that they provide, that's not factored into the site plan as of now, right?
Right. The project, at the end of the day, would need to meet on-site stormwater retention requirements set by Public Works and the number of canopy trees for a site, especially if this is a brand-new blank slate. they will have to meet the stormwater runoff requirements. That'll be separate from this land use review.
Okay.
It is recognized that it is a large part of this existing site, and it is there now today. So that was seen as a limiting factor on where new trees could be planted. But in discussions with the applicant, there might be not necessarily canopy trees that could be planted within that area, but you could have that discussion on other types of trees that could be planted in that area to increase the number of trees on site.
Okay. Before I turn over to the public hearing, I just want to say a little bit more background about why I thought it was worth having this discussion. I don't have any objection to the variances that are being offered. If it was a new project, I probably would for having more parking than the 100 parking spot limit. But since it's just a reconfiguration of the existing one, I didn't have any problems with that. But in the original staff report, it was moving from 88 trees to 26, I think, which was a pretty sharp reduction from what would otherwise be required. And for industrial sites like this, we want to try to provide ecological refuge for wildlife. So I wanted to have a little bit more discussion to see if we could bring up that number. And it's great to see that we're already at 46, it turns out. But yeah, I want to see if there's more that can be done with that. Are there any other questions before we open the public hearing? All right, I will open the public hearing, and the application team wants to come up. You can give whatever presentation you want, but our focus is, I think, mostly going to be on the landscaping.
Sure. Thank you. My name's Kathy Osborne with LRS of Minnesota. We were formerly Atomic Recycling, in case you recognize that name. So we've been at this property for a few years now. I'm here with our area vice president and our operations manager so that we could answer any questions that you might have. And I do want to just say that I want to thank Aaron for all his time and effort for being able to work with us on this project, and we appreciate that. So do you want me to talk about the trees specifically, or do you have specific
Yeah, we can go right to questions if you want to. I didn't know if you had any more presentation you wanted to offer. All right. So, Aaron, can you pull up the photos that the applicant provided there on page 27 on mine? I just wanted to walk through the different photos of the existing landscape and comment on, what is good and what could be improved on them, and to just see if there are spaces on the project where more trees could be fit in without taking away from parking or storage, but just making better use of the landscaped area. So like the photo number 1 when he gets to it.
Yeah, and Aaron, you have to tell me what the difference is, how you counted a canopy tree versus like the evergreen trees and the arborvitae trees, if those don't count as canopy trees.
Right. A canopy tree being a deciduous tree that can grow to a height of at least 35 feet.
Okay.
Okay, so for this one, it's great that there's the rain garden there. It seems to me like that, there could be space for more trees around that and less grass.
So if you can't quite see, so on our drawing, there's another big pine tree. Like this is I guess I'm not sure if you see what I'm pointing at, but there's erosion or wood chips around that. So there's a big pine tree right there by our existing entrance.
Okay.
So that's a big pine tree. We've got right behind, to the right of our sign, there's a couple birch trees right in there. There is stormwater and other utilities. This little beehive right there. So the water that, if it overflows for the rain garden, will actually get to this stormwater pipe. So there is a series of pipes, and then there's also Xcel Energy has got natural gas pipe that goes from the street, 27th Avenue, to our building at that location as well. So there are some utilities that we'd have to work around to be able to plant additional large trees
Got it, okay.
in that location, in that specific location. We'd also would like to not completely hide our sign,
Right.
just so you can see our name.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you were to go farther west on 27th, in our plan, and I don't know if it will, if this is something you can see,
No, not right now.
Aaron, is that something that you can turn on?
There you go.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, so we had proposed one tree kind of right in front of this area. Potentially, we could reorganize and put a second tree. They're big trees, and the trees that are existing right here are very large trees. I mean, they take up a fair amount of space. So you can't get another tree right underneath that tree. That was one of the problems with trying to add more trees, is that the canopy that is already there, what our landscape architect said is, if they're too close, they won't grow. Or the big tree will shade the newer, younger, smaller trees. So you got to give them enough space. But, so if you wanted to have some more trees, another tree, we could talk to them about one or two more trees along here. There is a fire hydrant, but I think, and we have to move that over, but that won't be, I'm not sure, I think the water must come from the street, so that should be fine. I know that there's natural gas that comes up to our building. In between the two large trees that are right in front of our, say, our entrance, there's a water vault here. So we have water that comes into the building in this way, and there's another natural gas port on this part of the building as well. So there are utilities that we have to take into account if we're going to be planting large trees.
okay. And so that was one area where I thought more could fit, and the other area I thought more could fit was around the stormwater pond.
Yep. So the stormwater pond, right now, this is an existing pond. It does go fairly deep. There are weed trees in it right now. We are going through the PDR process to get, Sematech, our engineering company that is working on the site plan, has to update the water calculations. So I would have to find out, how high is the water level at whatever rain event that they want to design for, so that the correct type of tree would be planted farther down in case their roots would have to deal with additional water. Maybe a willow tree or something like that can take wet toes. There are trees along our property line. And I don't know, Aaron, if we scroll down to one of the other photos, we can kind of show you the trees that are existing in this area around the landscape, or around the infiltration basin.
Should just tell me to stop, or if you want to take over.
Oh, I can just scroll?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can sort of see, are you seeing this screen now, or the? Okay. So there's some trees in the back on the other side of the trucks, and you can see the top of the canopy of some of the other trees on the north side of the property.
And if you want to keep it back up there, for photo number 8, that area, that grass area was one area that it seemed like more could fit. I don't know if they were
Yep.
already.
So we are adding 5 trees,
There,
canopy
okay,
trees.
okay.
And then that's also where we're adding the arborvitae to offer some more screening. The thing here is that our property line is actually to the west of this retaining wall. The actual property line does not go all the way to the retaining wall. The right-of-way, which I understand is maintained by the city, and there's an easement along just to the left of this retaining wall. So it's either the county, because this is University Avenue, or the city, whoever may have to maintain the retaining wall, has to have access to the retaining wall. So we can only put the trees, it's close to the edge, and we have got outlets. All these trucks are plugged in the winter because they're diesel trucks. So we've got outlets all the way along this row of parking as well. So, we talked with them. We have the trees kind of spaced out so that the utility, the underground electrical wires in between all that outlets, we want to make sure that we don't have too many roots that could impact those as well.
Okay.
So that was one reason why we went with the 5 canopy trees, and then the arborvitae trees to offer a little bit more screening as the grade of University Avenue comes back down closer to 27th Avenue. Okay. Okay, so this one, photo number 14, that's the infiltration basin. So there's trees, there's vegetation. Right now, we can only mow kind of around part of it because it's fairly steep. And there are nice trees that are existing that will stay, that, all those trees that are kind of right along University Avenue. And we'll be adding some more trees closer to the side where the parking is to meet that ordinance requirement for 1 tree every 50 feet of parking spaces. So we're meeting all the requirements. You can sort of see with the little circles about that, meeting that requirement for the spacing for those additional trees. Some of these trees are fairly big right now. They're existing trees. They're starting to turn red. They're beautiful trees. So there is some opportunity. We're going to add more trees as you come this way into the photo, which also includes some pine trees, additional pine trees that would help with screening for the future on-site storage.
Yeah, and this is the main one where I thought there might be more opportunity. Because I'm wondering, like, could you plant more trees and mow less, or is there a reason that you want that area to be mowed?
This is fairly steep, so, I guess we could find out about putting some more trees. We do need to have some space to put snow. So one of the things that we've been doing in the past is our snow gets pushed to this end of the parking lot and then kind of towards the infiltration basin. So we can't put the trees so tightly packed up against or in front of that basin, because then we can't get the snow back there. So that would be one thing as well, too. Now, I could see we could try to put another tree. Now, these pine trees, and I'm trying to think of what our landscape architect what kind of pine trees they made those, but they get fairly big. So there's a possibility we could add one more tree, because this is an existing tree, and then try to get some more in there, too. So as long as we can find the right kind of tree that will grow in that conditions, whether it's because of the slope or because it's an infiltration basin, we can certainly check with them to find what they recommend.
Okay. I don't know if you're already going to scroll down to this, but can you just scroll down to, for me, it's page 40. It's the first diagram that you have that lays out where they are. Because what I noticed about it was that you put trees on the diagram. It's on the left and upper side of the pond, and didn't have them on the bottom and right side. And now that you mentioned the snow, I'm wondering which side you bringing the snow in on, and if the snow side could just be one, and if trees could be added on, if there could be trees on 3 sides of the pond.
Sure. So let me show you, too, that this is our stormwater utility piping. We have catch basins around our parking lot that come all drain to the infiltration basin, and there are outlets inside the basin. So, we had to also make sure that the trees didn't impact that piping. So there's a pipe there, and then there's another pipe over here. So if we add additional trees on this farther north side, that would at least be away from that piping. The snow, the way that they usually push it with a loader or a bobcat or something like that, they would push it kind of in these openings right here. I'm not sure if I'm pointing wherever it's in between the new trees that we're planting.
Yeah, we can't see where you're pointing.
I know, I'm saying,
yeah.
how do I, maybe if I show you on here, can you see where I'm pointing here? So right
Yes,
now, the
yes.
snow might get pushed in between these 2 new trees,
Okay.
and then gets pushed in between these 2 new trees. That's what we do now. And there's no tree right there, so everything kind of gets pushed
So
on that end
point
of
to where the
parking
pipe
lot.
is?
Pardon?
You were saying the pipe was
Oh,
in
so there's a pipe,
Oh, okay.
there's a
that's it.
pipe here, this line, and there's a pipe here along this line, and then there's 2 outlets in kind of on the edge of the basin, right there. And then there's another pipe that comes this way and comes over here. So these three underground pipes have to be considered.
We put more trees here though, right? In the north end
We
of the water?
could try to put some more trees on this side.
Point on the other
sorry.
screen.
North end of the water.
So if we try to put more trees here, it would be coming down this slope. So that I just have to make sure, what kind of tree. I don't know if they can be a full canopy tree, or if they'd be a willow tree, or if they would be maybe a red twig, some sort of shrubbery that could handle wet toes kind of thing. But, yeah, we would be willing to put more trees back there
Okay.
if that is helpful.
That answers my question. I'm going to have one more question for staff after this. Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you, Chair Meyer, and thank you for coming in and putting so much thought into this landscape plan. I think for me, the area that is more interesting is the southwest corner of the lot, where I don't know if you want to point to confirm we're talking about the same thing on the diagram, but I'm talking about where you're adding one tree facing, I believe, 27th Ave. Do you want to try pointing for me where you think I'm talking about? Yes.
Is this one?
Yes, that's exactly where I'm talking about. What would your thoughts be on adding an additional tree or two at that location?
Yep, I would just have to double check in utilities, but I think we could rearrange where that one proposed tree is so that there might be two or three new trees potentially, on the corner. You don't want it too close to where all the trucks are driving in, so you got to make sure that it doesn't overhang into that drive lane. But then you could maybe put one there, and there, keeping in mind that the water and the natural gas come into the building somewhere right in through here. So there's a utility right in this
Yeah.
area.
Thank you for that description. I think it might be labeled on the site plan in the packet we received. And I'm not sure. I mean, there's architects on this board, on this commission, that could confirm my reading of what I'm seeing. But I think that aligns with perhaps what I would have in mind. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, on this, if you're looking at the one on the screen, so here's our existing tree, and then there's a line that's kind of light. I can't see it on this one because I made it as a photocopy, but if you're looking at the one on the screen, there is a line right there. So that says gas line right there. And then I believe that our water line, it must be down next to this area, or up in here is the water line. But this tree and this tree are the two existing very large trees.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Mr. Shepherd?
If I may, so one of the kind of goals with the tree ordinance is to reduce urban heat island effect, and, shading the stormwater pond is great, but doesn't contribute to that
Yeah.
really at all. And you have to maintain that BMP, and I appreciate that as well. So I get kind of hung up on the BNSF property line where you've got almost no room. I completely acknowledge that, but is there anything, I don't care what we call it in terms of tree or shrub, but is there any way that we can reduce the amount of sunlight hitting the pavement on that west side of the site?
So our neighbors.
You'd have to scroll down a little bit,
I know I'm trying to-
because the west is the top of the screen.
Yeah, that's something I was going to clarify. North is on the
So north-
right side of the diagrams.
North is over here.
Yeah,
So
so
you're
we're really
looking
hung up,
along here.
I'm hung up on what's on the south and what's on the west.
West. So the neighbors,
Kathy, can you slide that down
Yeah.
on the? there you go.
Perfect, and then you can see that little tiny strip
okay.
that really looks like it's about 5 or 6 feet.
The strip that we have here is like 9 feet. I believe 7 or 9 feet we have that as. And so if you're picturing our entrance will have trucks going in, the neighbors use the easement, which is owned by the railroad, as their entrance for large semi-trucks. And currently that whole area is, you're right, it's all pavement. And all the way to the north, it's all currently pavement as well. And there's kind of the way everything drains. I guess it will be sort of interesting once our engineering firm does that grading plan too, through the PDR process. The ordinance didn't require any green or screening on this side because it's not next to a public street. So we wanted to use that space as best we could for our use. There is all the evergreens on the far north side, and then we were going to add more grass at the very far north. I suppose one option is to make this maybe a little bit wider and add more trees there.
Yeah, again, my question has to do with shading, not screening,
Yeah,
shading your site in particular.
yeah, you know,
Just putting it out there. Is there any way to get anything at all, columnar, arborvitae, for lack of a better plant species?
and are you thinking in the area that we're
In that area up
currently
there?
showing?
Yep.
We could check with, to find out if there's something that we could do along here. We probably don't want a large canopy tree
No,
because of the truck traffic there.
agreed. Yeah.
We want to make sure that the lighting that is in here is also able to light the parking lot. This is the side where we'd have visitor parking, so we want to make sure that, you know, when it's dark, that the lighting is able to work. But, you know, my thought, I wanted to have an area to put some native grasses and some native plants, and that would be kind of a good area to do that because it would be, you know, low. But, you know, if you would like something different, we could certainly look into that.
That's my 2 cents worth. I would prefer something which throws some, you know, it's west, so the sun angle is going to be a little bit lower, just to get a little more shade on the parking lot. Not a complete wall.
Okay. So you're thinking more like an arborvitae?
Yeah, something 15 feet, fully grown. Yeah, that'd be good.
We can find out how wide those get.
There are many kinds. You can
I'm
get
sorry?
there are columnar, there are, you know,
Right.
a number of varieties, but
Yep.
just so that you're amenable to looking into that is all I'm looking for.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's my only question.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't. The island in the center of your large lot, you have 4 trees, is that?
Yep. Same thing here. We'll have outlets.
Oh,
And
same
we've
as
got-
university.
Yes, so there's
I see.
outlets here and there's outlets here. So everywhere where there's a truck parking, because there's truck parking here, 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 and here, there will all be the electrical conduit
Okay.
in between, underneath there. And then we've got 2 light poles here, and then the light poles here and here, I believe, too. So
Yeah.
that all has electrical conduit that runs to that area, too.
Yeah, good, understood. Thanks.
You know, I guess if I was to try to offer, these were smaller trees, just because it's an existing, we have trucks here right now, and this is an existing green space island right now. If we were to add another tree there, or somehow reposition them so that you could put 3 there, if that would be, if you'd like that.
More shade on paving is all good to me, so that'd be great.
Okay.
Commissioner Baxley?
Yeah, again, I think echo Commissioner Wagner's thanks for kind of working this out. I guess I've learned this from my wife, who's a landscape architect. When architects start planning where trees go, we always get into trouble. So whatever is finally approved, the landscape architect looks at it and makes sure it's viable and can be built. I'm super concerned about that skinny island right from the get-go. There's probably not enough material there to get a substantial tree to grow over time, just
Right.
because it's pretty tight.
Well, the minimum, you have to have at least 7 foot, and we made that 9
Yeah.
to give us a little bit more width, because we were worried about tree branches and trucks.
Yep.
You know,
yep.
either the truck gets scratched or the tree branch gets broken, so.
Yeah, which is all good. It's just not a lot of medium there to grow. But
Yep, but we
thank
did
you.
make the other one wider,
Yeah, it's terrific.
because that would be a new one.
Commissioner Conley?
Thank you, and I just really appreciate this discussion and your willingness. I think you understand, it's very clear that you understand the impacts of urban heat islands and what these requirements are designed to do. I also think that, you know, landscaping is trees are infrastructure, in my opinion. They're part of the overall landscaping, but I also think that landscaping is a part of the building infrastructure as well. And I wondered if you had considered green roof or green roofing. There's a lot of flat roof space, and green roofs can do the same thing. They can do a lot around stormwater management, reducing the urban heat island, improving air quality, all of the things that we want to see in large industrial spaces and what these requirements are designed to do. So is that something that you have considered? I know that there's funding available out in the world for folks who want to do things like green their spaces. And so a good way to do that for larger buildings with flat roofs like what you have is to make it a green roof. Is that something that you're considering or would consider?
Well, we actually were considering putting solar on the roof.
You could do both.
Because there were some other areas in Northeast that was open to adding more to the community solar gardens. So there's a different roof design that you need even just to make sure that your structure can support solar panels. We have not looked into doing a green roof because I was thinking about the solar side.
Okay, so for the alternative compliance, we have to specify the number of canopy trees that are required. So after today's update, your proposal is at 46. After the discussions that we just had, how many additional canopy trees do you think we could fit in there? Like if we set it at 50, would you be able to accommodate them? Okay.
So that's 4 more canopy trees?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
can add 4 more.
And then I have a question for Aaron, just to, so we have conditions around canopy trees and shrubs. Do we have a condition around trees in the middle? Like, that are beneath 35 feet? Like, we don't require a certain number of those?
That's, those count towards some parts of the site plan review chapter, but I could look quickly to see how many ornamental trees, those non-canopy trees that they are proposing. But if you want to call out a number, or if there's a number that, with your discussions,
Chair Meyer, to answer your question, ornamental trees do not count towards the tree or shrub requirement in the site plan review chapter. We often use those when we're analyzing whether or not to grant alternative compliance, and we can, use that as an alternative proposed by the applicant. So, and in this case, in guiding the discussion, I would just say, Commissioner Baxley did bring this up, I would caution against any specifics on placement and steer the commission towards just a general number if you're looking at adding or changing a condition of approval related to the trees.
Okay. So I'm fine with setting the canopy requirement at 50, and then they meet the shrubbery requirement and the overall landscaping requirement. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. Unless, Commissioner Shepard, did you want to make a condition around?
Oh,
the
no,
one?
no. I just wanted you to look into it.
Okay.
That's all. And 9 feet is wider than every city boulevard everywhere. So it's doable.
Okay. Thank you for working that through with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're welcome.
right.
Thank you.
All right, would anyone else like to speak to this? I don't see anyone else in the room, but just in case. All right, I will close the public hearing. So commissioners, I should have waited until after the public hearing was over, but what I would propose is to support the staff recommendation with the modification that the alternative compliance would be 50 canopy trees instead of 26. Is there any more discussion? Commissioner Wagner?
Thank you, Chair Meyer. I do have one quick question about that. So I think getting to 50 would require them to be using that, and I'm getting thrown off by the orientation of the diagrams, but I believe the northeast corner of the lot where the stormwater pond is, if they were to encounter difficulties at that location, what would happen from like an administrative procedure standpoint?
So that's why I was cautioning against choosing specific locations. There's a very hefty manual that landscape architects use when they analyze whether or not certain plantings can be used in certain stormwater infrastructure locations. So I would say the applicant shall work with staff could be added into the condition. And in that case, if it's found that there aren't feasible locations for 4 additional trees, we could work that out administratively.
Thank you for that clarification. I would definitely support adding that verbiage. I trust staff to work with the applicant and find the best solution for this site. I would hate for all the work that they've put into this plan to be deterred because we picked 50 and they can't get to 50. That was my only comment. And I would support that motion and adding that language.
I think I'd rather just leave it at 50 and because that is the guidance that they gave, that Kimberly was giving, is that we didn't want to say where exactly it'd be placed, but we can, we could just require 88 and require it to be taken from pavement to wherever else if that was what it came to. So I think, the applicant was receptive to 50, and I think we should just leave it at that.
I'd be happy with that as well. I think that I'd be curious to hear what Commissioner Shepard or Baxley think. I'm struggling to see a location for 4 trees on this site plan that does not include the stormwater pond. And if they're not able to add them at the stormwater pond because of the slope, then they could be in a tight spot.
That was a question I had because Aaron brought it up too. I don't understand why the slope matters because, you have trees on hills all the time, right? Why do you think?
Go ahead, Commissioner Shepard.
Sorry. It's the proximity to the stormwater management.
Yes.
The BMP is its own special thing that has to be maintained.
Oh, okay.
So that there's some concerns around getting access to it and maintaining that slope. I'd better not touch that.
Okay. All right, well.
So if you're amenable to 50, if the applicant's amenable to 50, great.
Yeah, I said you do 50.
And, I think that's fantastic. And wherever they go, they go. They look confident.
Commissioner Conley?
Thank you. But how would the language read, right? So I'm hearing language, work with staff and to get to 50, and then just keeping the number at 50. So a happy medium, right, is what would the amended language sound like?
So my understanding is that we would add a condition number 6 under site plan review that there be a minimum of 50 canopy trees planted on site.
Yep. That's what I would propose, yes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so you're moving the staff recommendation with a condition
The condition.
of 50 canopy trees on site.
Yes.
All right. Is there a second to that?
Second.
More discussion? Commissioner Conley?
So just going to assume that with this, with number 6, minimum 50 trees planted on site, that applicants and staff would just work together on placement. So then that does beg the question about location, right? So if they're working together and they say, man, we've scoured the entire site, all however many acres it is, and they can fit 3 more, and that's it, then what happens?
Then the applicant comes back to this commission for an amendment to their site plan review application.
So then, is there language that avoids having to come back?
Yes, saying the applicant shall work with staff to plant a minimum of 50 canopy trees on site.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Understood. That's a friendly amendment then.
Well, okay.
I think we can work it out with the applicant.
Okay. Did you want to make an amendment to it, or do you, or can we just leave it as it is, Commissioner Conley?
I'm hearing that staff will work with the applicant, and I think we can get there. So
Okay.
I'm gonna trust staff expertise.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Conley,
Aye?
Commissioner Shepard,
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Vice President Baxley,
Aye.
And President Meyer.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That carries. Good luck with your project. All right, our last item, adoption of the 2026 transition calendar. Is there any discussion on this? Would anyone like to move adoption of the transition calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? That is adopted. So we have no committee of the whole this week for lack of agenda items, and then our next, and I think last regular meeting will be December 8th, 2025. Are there any updates from staff or commissioners?
One update from staff, we did receive an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision for the project at 4109 and 4113 Sheridan, appeal of all applications, so that will go forward to the December 2nd Biz Committee of the City Council.
All right. Seeing no one else, that is the conclusion of our business, so we are adjourned.